of nature, things of that 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 nature.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into the Pot of That Nature pregame show as we get you geared up for Arkansas and Ole Miss this weekend in Fayetteville. I'm Curtis Wilkerson. He's Andrew Ellis with Inside Arkansas. And man, we have a lot to get into. And honestly, Andrew, before we even get started, I got to pat myself on the back because I don't know how many times I've restarted Pot at the Palace recently by saying Pot of That Nature, and I didn't screw it up this time. Man, those are way too similar for me to be doing this so often. But yeah, we've reached this the most exciting time really of the year of the fall is when you got that overlap between football and basketball. And basketball is about to get rolling for real here. But this is a big game for Arkansas football, man. A win means Larry the Bowling Ball makes an appearance for the first time in a couple years.
Yeah, I think it speaks to how much is going on in the world and just even in this world of Arkansas sports with basketball really heating up, coming off of a huge exhibition win with another one coming tomorrow, that it's Thursday of a game week, Curtis. And, you know, I really haven't had a ton of people like hit me up and be like, oh, hey, what do you think about this game? What do you feel about Arkansas Ole Miss? Like, are they going to beat Ole Miss? And, you know, considering how big of an opportunity is in front of the Arkansas Razorbacks, you would think there would be a little bit more buzz, and maybe an 11 a.m. kickoff is killing that a little bit. But it'll be interesting to see just how this fan base reacts if things go according to plan for the Arkansas Razorbacks, which you and I just discussed briefly before going live, that we're not quite as optimistic as we expected to be at this point in the week. But anyways, I'm happy to discuss the game, and I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a fun game.
Yeah, and that's the one thing you can almost guarantee in this matchup is it is usually a fun game or entertaining, whether it ends in heartbreak or triumph for the Razorbacks. But it's been just a wild series. I don't necessarily know why this game would be any different in particular. But yeah, I'm with you. You're right. We talked about it before the show. Usually the longer we go through a week, the more optimistic I get. And we put out our predictions on Thursday right now, and we're recording this on Thursday morning. I'm kind of like, yeah, I don't know. So still a little skeptical, and it's a combination of things. You know, it's me, I think, going overboard personally to try to not overreact to what Arkansas did to Mississippi State, which, hey, was awesome, man. That was great. Just a solid performance by the Razorbacks. But I also acknowledge Mississippi State got some problems over there, man. So there's that part of it. And then there's the thing of, you know, is Ole Miss, or are they underachieving? Are they about to let go of the rope? You know, what's going on here? To me, I see an Ole Miss team that I think is very clearly playing for their college football playoff lives. Like they have to win out at the minimum, and maybe that gets them there. Maybe they need a little bit of help, but there's no more room for error. And they're 6-2 overall, 2-2 in the SEC. But I look at this bunch and I see one that's good offensively, as they always are. Probably one of the better defenses we've seen from an Ole Miss team in a long time. And you know, they are quite literally 2 plays away from being undefeated. We talk about that with Arkansas all the time. As Oklahoma State game, A&M game, they were that 4th and ridiculously long against Kentucky away from avoiding that upset, which we can say we won. Like Arkansas almost got upset by UAB. It happens. And then in that LSU game, I mean, we've talked about it, just missed opportunity after missed opportunity. And despite that, all they had to do was get Garrett Nussmeier off the field on one of those 4th downs on that final possession of regulation before it went to overtime. So Ole Miss, very good. Arkansas, exceeding expectations a little bit. Another really just, damn, man, they've had a run of really good games at home in Fayetteville. Kind of a bummer. It's an 11 a.m. Maybe it's going to be rainy, and we'll see how that factors into things. But I don't know, man. I say we just go ahead and get into this because we do the same thing for these shows in the pregame. We kind of give the checklist for Arkansas. What are the musts, the non-negotiables that we got to have? We throw out some challenges to some Razorbacks who we feel like need to step up, who are key to the operation. And then we come out with some bold predictions. And, of course, in the aftermath, you can catch us after the game. We hold our accountability session where we pat ourselves on the back if we were right, and we call ourselves idiots if we were wrong. And, those are always a little bit of fun. So, Andrew, winning checklist here. And basically what we're talking about, it's you know, is there a key area of the game that stands out to you that Arkansas really needs to win to get through this one? We'll do one of those, and we'll do one just position battle, Hogs against Rebels, that we feel like Arkansas has got to take care of.
So here's my we come on the show a lot of times, Curtis, and we say Arkansas really has to run the ball. They have to get the run game going. Like they cannot abandon it if things don't go great early, because they've done that a few times. Arkansas has to find a way to have success on the ground. Curtis, I come to you accepting defeat already in this department. I think Arkansas is going to run the ball at least to the level that they would like to. Ole Miss allows, I think it's 76.5 points per or rushing yards per game, which is first in the country, first nationally. But like that's the type of number you see. We saw that number from Tennessee, but that was early in the year. This is like a legitimate. They faced SEC teams. They've been playing for a while. It's going to be November when this game happens, and they are still allowing under 80 yards per game on the ground. Will Arkansas be able to have some success here and there? I think you can. But to me, I think Arkansas has to put this game in Taylor Green's hands and trust him. I think he's going to have to set the tone early and come out and hit throws, because think about it. What does everyone do against Arkansas? Oh, you got to force this quarterback that we, from Boise State that we had never heard of. You got to force him to beat you. Yep. He's shown a capability here in the last month or so to beat some teams, to make some of those plays. His decision making has been a lot better. His accuracy has been a lot better. I feel like you can see him growing in this offense week after week. I think Arkansas has to kind of put this game in. This is one of those games where I'm not saying Taylor Green has to carry them to victory, but for Arkansas to open things up offensively, I think he's going to have to hit some throws early. And I think, frankly, Curtis, it's not even really worth Arkansas's time to do the thing of like, hey, let's just run the ball. We'll get one. Let's run the ball here. We'll get two. Let's just keep at it, and eventually we'll wear them down. I really don't know if that's the way to go in this game. I feel like you're almost wasting your time. I just feel like Arkansas has to keep this Ole Miss offense or defense off balance. They need to be trying to think ahead and try and open things up in unique and creative ways. And I do not think Arkansas's typical, run game is going to get it done, which isn't a knock on Arkansas's run game, which, by the way, also hasn't really been that great in SEC play. But I just think in this matchup against Ole Miss, it's almost not worth your time. Like it really is. And if you just look at some of the teams that have played them and the teams that have had success against them, like all the big plays Kentucky made were through the air. All the big plays LSU made were through the air. Not saying that Ole Miss is vulnerable in the secondary at all, because they're really not. But if you're going to attack this defense, it's going to be vertically. And it's going to be with your quarterback and your passing game. And so I think Arkansas, as weird as it sounds, should abandon the run game kind of. I think they need to pass to set up the run and not vice versa.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting, man. I think a couple things stand out to me. One, the red zone, because Arkansas's struggles there have been well documented. They did go 9 for 9 against Mississippi State last week. Even with that, Andrew, red zone offense for Arkansas ranks 14th still in the SEC and 88th nationally. You flip the coin, and the Ole Miss defense in the red zone, number 1 in the SEC, number 3 in the country. They're only getting scored on 60% of opponent opportunities in the red zone. That's really good.
Pretty wild.
Like, that's crazy good. And we know the importance of Arkansas. It's like whatever the opposite of bend but don't break defense is, where you're getting it moved on you between the 20s, and then you tighten up, you don't let up points or whatever. Whatever that is, where Arkansas is just able to matriculate the ball up and down the field between the red zones, and then you get in there. And you got to settle for field goals or whatever. Arkansas's got to cash in on points. And honestly, I say field goals. I don't care if they just get 3. You just got to get points when you get those opportunities. So that is something that stands out to me in this game. And when I look at positions, it's pretty straightforward to me. I agree with so much of what you said about the rushing attack. I had Arkansas's O-line versus Ole Miss's defensive line in there. For that reason, and in terms of just protecting Taylor Green, giving him a little bit of time to think, because it's one thing, we talk about his improved decision-making, some of the poise that he's shown in the pocket, his improvement with his accuracy as a passer. Okay, I think the next test for him is to see him do that when he's under more duress. He was not against Mississippi State. Ole Miss will do that. If you talk about just in terms of getting to the quarterback, Ole Miss over 4 sacks per game. That's first in the SEC, second in the country. That's very good. Tackles for loss, they lead the country with 10 a game. Pretty impressive stuff from them on the defensive end. I got to give them credit where it's due. Now, that defensive line for them, it's interesting. So I'm pretty sure they didn't sack Nussmeier in that game. Like, I don't think they got to him, but then they turn around the next week against Oklahoma and they get 9 sacks in a game. I know those guys have some offensive line problems, but my goodness, man. And so really it's going to be a big task, I think, for Arkansas's offensive line. One guy in particular, but I'm going to save it for my challenges here. And then the other position, and tell me if I'm crazy, but I don't know that this is not a must win for Arkansas, because I just don't think they're going to win this. But you just can't get gashed. Arkansas defensive backs have struggled the last couple weeks, whether it's, giving too much cushion and giving up yards through the air, or just not finishing plays and tackling. Lane Kiffin is a master at getting the ball to his playmakers in space and letting them go to work. They have really, really good receivers, whether Trey Harris plays or not, who is the only guy with more receiving yards in the SEC than Andrew Armstrong. Those guys have to be a lot better, and it's corners, safeties, the entire defensive backfield. Those guys are going to have to pick it up significantly in this game.
Well, one thing that I think will help is if you're looking for a little bit of a weakness in this Ole Miss team, and I'm not saying Ole Miss is like flawless and they don't have weaknesses, but I think the offensive line for Ole Miss, if there were a weakness, it would be that offensive line, because you look at the skill position, you look at their quarterback, who's one of the best, more experienced quarterbacks in the league. Trey Harris is without a doubt the best receiver in the league. I think we can go ahead and say that. But Ole Miss has given up more than 2 sacks per game, which, again, pass rush has been a little bit of a thing that comes and goes for the Arkansas Razorbacks. Sometimes it's a little bit non-existent. But if you look at the performances that have kind of flustered Ole Miss, it's been when teams have been able to get pressure on Jackson Dart. And he still doesn't make a ton of mistakes. What is it? Only 3 interceptions on the year. But he's had some games in SEC play like that. Kentucky game in particular, they weren't able to really make a ton of big plays outside of the one fourth quarter touchdown they had. Against LSU, he was pretty solid early in that game. But LSU, I mean, teams have been able to kind of fluster Jackson Dart a little bit. And I mean, just statistically, he's having a great statistical season. But if you look at it, a lot of that came in SEC play. This Ole Miss offense hasn't really broken out in the way that we typically remember them. In SEC play, they scored 27 against South Carolina in what was a beatdown. But they've been in that kind of 24, 27 range most of the time. And against Kentucky, obviously only scored 17. So they really haven't had like the ceiling come off where it's like, oh, they're just firing on all cylinders. And I think a big part of that is this is not an offensive line that necessarily imposes their will on opposing teams. Now, obviously, they're plenty good enough to give these skill guys and give this quarterback enough time to succeed. But I think if there's something Arkansas can take advantage of, and I think Travis Williams is going to be looking into some ideas into how to do that. He's very good at picking up on teams' weaknesses. I think Arkansas is going to find a way to pressure the quarterback, and I think they pretty much have to in this game, which, of course, obviously you have to do it. But again, when an opponent like Ole Miss on the other end is sacking your quarterback freaking 9 times, which, we would assume they're not going to do that, but I figure they're going to fall somewhere between the 0 they had against LSU and the 9 against Oklahoma. I'd guess about 3 or 4 or something like that. If they're going to be getting pressure on your quarterback, you've got to match that in some form or fashion. And especially if Arkansas is going to keep this one close and keep it from getting out of hand, they've really got to find a way to disrupt Jackson Dart and not let this be the week that Ole Miss's offense really starts clicking on all cylinders.
Yeah, for sure. And man, I don't know if what your phone setup is like, but I got woke up at midnight with the tornado warning thing last night. Freaked me out. And it's been happening and it's unfortunate, but like Amber Alerts and stuff at 1:00 in the morning. I was like, oh, what's going on? No, it's a tornado warning on October 30th. This doesn't make any sense. My point being, it's the first time it's rained in Arkansas in literally like 2 months. Like that's not an exaggeration.
Lord knows we needed it.
Yeah. Boy, we need it for the crops down there, man. But in all seriousness, this might be a deal where weather plays a factor in the game. And I hear people automatically go, oh yeah, rain against Ole Miss. Yeah. Advantage Arkansas. I don't know that I necessarily agree with that actually, because you do have an Arkansas team here that fumbles the football a lot. So do we really want to make that thing slicker than it is? We have an Arkansas team that has really struggled to tackle and finish those things. Do we really want to make Ole Miss's playmakers a little bit more slippery and hard to get hands on? And so I understand it from the standpoint of, well, maybe it kind of slows down the aerial attack, whatever. But At the very least, I think it's a wash, no pun intended, if it's raining out there. But I don't know that that's as big of an advantage for Arkansas that I've heard some people say that it might be. Maybe I'm crazy. I don't know. Do you think about that? Do you care about that?
No, I think about it, and like I get why people say that, because I think, if you're just thinking of a team in Ole Miss, and frankly, let's just be honest here. If you're looking at these two teams on paper, there's a little bit of a discrepancy in terms of just what each team's good at. The talent. There's a little bit of a discrepancy, and so maybe that rain kind of softens that a little bit to where there's kind of just makes it a little bit of a crapshoot. But really, in my opinion, Curtis, and this is breaking analysis here, groundbreaking stuff. The team that is favored when it starts raining is the team that doesn't do anything stupid, because that's really what it comes down to. It's one of those things we'd love to say, oh yeah, our coaching staff, hey, they got them prepared. In the heat of the moment when the ball's kind of slipping and sliding around, it's just whoever doesn't do anything stupid, whoever's able to fall on the stupid mistake that your opponent makes. And I think that, Curtis, is just kind of like fumbles in general, I've always felt, is just based on nothing. Like, it's literally just based on how water resistant your glove is, or just certain random things that, like, frankly, I'm not going to worry about. Now, I agree with what you're saying, though, that it's not a decided advantage to one team or the other. I really do think it's going to be one of those things of, in practice that week, how are they handling the elements and doing a little wet ball, snapping the wet ball kind of stuff. And so we'll see how that works out. But I agree with you that, like, I'm not dead set on it being a thing that's going to benefit Arkansas, simply because I could very well see Arkansas doing something stupid in the rain. It's just kind of the way it works. And also, again, we talked about the run game. I don't know if Arkansas is going to be able to run the ball on Ole Miss. So it's like, if Arkansas is not going to be able to throw because it's pouring rain, I really don't necessarily. I'm not sure it's an advantage. I'm not sure it's a disadvantage either, but I don't feel great about it regardless.
Yeah. Rumor has it, and I don't know, like, I had to fact check it, but sources tell me that that Arkansas's football staff has been doing some digging in the closets over at the basketball practice facility, pulled out Eric Musselman's water guns, and have been using those out at practice this week. So didn't work out with them with Nick Smith, but we'll see if they have better success there with the football players. So we're going to get into some challenges here in just a second, but real quick, I want to tell you guys about our friends over at Rhoback. Listen, people, if you haven't taken advantage of this opportunity yet, this offer that we got going on, what are you waiting for? It is finally, we've been teasing it, every day for a week, like, the seasons are changing. It's cooling off outside. Make sure you get layered up. Well, that's actually happening now. So do that. Go to Rhoback.com. Take advantage of this promo code HOGSBY20. You get 20% off your first purchase. They got a little bit of everything, man. Razorback gear, if you want it, that's your hookup. And then it's just high-end, top quality stuff. They've got the performance hoodies and quarter zips. I think you actually have a hoodie coming. I have a quarter zip coming, and maybe we get those tonight at the Leroy. I know John said maybe they'll be in by that time. That would be sick, but they got everything, man. Polos, t-shirts, you name it, they've got it. It's high-end, top quality stuff. Take advantage of it. Go over, check it out. Rhoback.com. Again, the promo code is HOGSBY20 to get you 20% off of your first purchase there. Okay. Pre-game challenges. We have fun with these. We issue challenges to guys we think are critical to the operation. We always give the caveat, no, it's not a, hey, you sucked last week, get better this week kind of deal. It's just guys we think Arkansas really needs to step up if they're going to win the game. Or it's just a hunch or a feel that we have of, hey, I think this is a big moment for them. We like the matchup, whatever. The first one for me, and I wanted to make sure I go first because I was a little bit proud of the way I'm going to say this. No fluke for Luke. Have what I'm talking about. You like that? Okay.
I like that. Okay.
I it did me good to see him. He looked completely healthy coming out of the bye. And then I just think they've been gradually doing a good job of showing that he has a pulse. It was like, he had a couple catches for 22 yards or whatever. That was cool. So they got him involved on one drive. 4 receptions in this last game, 2 touchdown receptions. They ran the sick play with him, the throwback to the pass play with him, and then he caught another touchdown late. All of a sudden, he's leading the team in touchdown receptions, just like we all expected he would be. I just think it's just such a different dynamic that is added to the offense when you've got Luke Has as a part of it. I just want to see them continue to do that. I'm not saying he's got to go out there and catch another touchdown pass, but if he gets another 4 receptions or whatever, if he's targeted a half dozen times, I just think that's huge for Arkansas. And, this doesn't matter, Andrew, but to me, like, you had a couple tight ends who were kicked off the team, And so now you have, lower numbers, depth is a question mark there. I guess what I'm saying is tight end is just an area that the casual observer or the fan is looking at because they're like, oh yeah, they're getting rid of some guys. These other dudes better step up and make plays. I'm not going to say, hey, I challenge Posca to get 2 more touchdown receptions, but I'm just challenging, Petrino has everyone, Taylon Green, get this dude involved and let's go ahead and make this the game where he is, fully established again as a weapon in this offense.
I guess we should also point out that he does lead the team in touchdown receptions, which is kind of crazy. But I agree with what you're saying, and I also think like if he does have a game similar to last week, even aside from the 2 touchdowns, if he has a like 4 for 45 or 3 for 42, or just like a decent contribution in this game, he's officially a part of the offense. Like that would now be 2 weeks in a row. And so it's like, you kind of just want to see it happen a few times in a row. Cause I really feel like there was a stretch there where he wasn't a part of the offense at all. Like it was just not something they were concerned with. He would every now and then accidentally have a ball come his way, but it clearly wasn't something they were trying to get going. But if he catches 3 or 4 more passes, regardless of if they're in the end zone or not, I feel like he's officially a part of the offense, Curtis. And another guy who I feel like I'm going to stick in the pass catching department here. Another guy I feel like obviously has been a part of the offense, maybe not necessarily in the red zone, Andrew Armstrong.
Yeah.
Now, again, we always clarify that these challenges are not, hey, you suck and you need to be good. Andrew Armstrong's been very good, very consistently. But I think this is the type of game where, like, when you're going to beat, if you're going to beat teams that are frankly better than you, you need like people to step up in big ways. You need your stars to show up and you need people to kind of play above, their normal output, which Andrew Armstrong's normal output is pretty freaking high. It's like damn near 100 yards a game. Yeah. But I really think this has got to be like an iconic Andrew Armstrong performance. Not necessarily like it's not going to come down to him, but I just feel like, Andrew Armstrong is the guy that's like super consistent, that just is always going to get his 80, 90 yards. Apparently not going to catch a touchdown these days because they don't throw to him in the end zone just for whatever reason. But I do also think you just had 2 tight ends catch 2 touchdowns, pass you up on the leaderboard. You only got 1 on the year. Let's get Andrew Armstrong in the end zone. And I also think Arkansas just needs to ride the horse, man. Yeah. Just throw to him as often as possible. You got a bye week next week. Just throw to him as many times. Try and get that cat like 150, 160 yards. I also would point out he's going up against a guy in Trey Harris who is, going to finish with better stats than everyone in the country by the end of the year. But I think that has to give him a little bit of a chip on his shoulder of like, hey, I think I'm as good as I think I'm a first team all SEC receiver. I know that guy is. Let me kind of rise to his level. I think there's a little bit of that there in this matchup with Andrew Armstrong. And of course, he's good enough to do literally anything we put on his shoulders. And so I'm counting on a big game from Andrew Armstrong, and I want to see him really step up in this one. And I have pretty good confidence that he will.
Yeah, I love that, Andrew, for 2 reasons. One, it's you can say what you want, but I think there's a little bit of something to be said about some, I don't know, like extra motivation or a chip on the shoulder when you are going against another one of the best. I'm talking about at your position. Yes. Like Trey Harris has been leading the SEC in receiving all year. Andrew Armstrong's been right behind him. They both have missed a game now, so we can't do that thing anymore. But
also right behind him is true because he is number 2 in receiving yards, but it is a little deceiving.
Yeah, that's right. What is it, like a 200-yard difference now? Or and so you're 1-2 in the SEC. And first of all, we'll see about Trey Harris. I mean, he didn't play last week.
Yeah,
he's questionable this week. Who knows if he's going to play or not? But just that kind of matchup, that would be one that I would be motivated, I think, to just get a little bit extra for me in this game. Hey, don't be afraid to come my way, Taylon. So that part of it I like. And then the other part of it is if you have a matchup against a really good guy who's going to be guarding you, right? And so that part of it. And I don't know that I necessarily feel that way with Ole Miss and Arkansas with Andrew Armstrong and whoever's going to be guarding him, because I don't frankly know about Ole Miss's corners probably as much as I should, whatever. But on the flip side, I'm challenging Cuddy, Marquise Robinson. You got to have the game of your life, dude. That's just what it is. If you got Trey Harris, and I'm not saying I just don't think you're going to win that matchup. But listen, it's time to cut out the Flappy Bird stuff, the flap the wings nonsense. You got to really, really lock in. And I think the challenge, it's not shut down Trey Harris. That isn't fair. He's one of the best in the country. Contain him, avoid the home run play, keep the stuff in front of you, whatever. But that's going to be a really, really important matchup. Again, Jalen Braxton, we might as well not, continue to say every week, like, oh, he's not going to play. When he does play, we'll let you know. But that's just the toughest assignment that he's had all year. Wasn't his best against LSU with Lacey and some of those other guys. Obviously, Arkansas struggled in the secondary last week. This is going to be just a kind of a different animal if he sees Trey Harris or, honestly, whoever the hell steps up in his absence, because they got a lot of really talented dudes at receiver. So Cuddy, I'm throwing a challenge out there too as well. I'm going to save my other one. You go ahead. If you have another one, go ahead.
I've got two more actually.
Okay.
One, I'm going to stick with you in the defensive back room, and I'm going to go with TJ Metcalf, a guy we have challenged a few times now on this show. A guy that we've talked about a good bit for good and bad reasons. We've talked about TJ Metcalf a good bit.
Yeah.
TJ Metcalf at times has been Arkansas's best playmaker on defense. Former SEC Player of the Week. He's also at Ole Miss, where I believe his father played. Running back at Ole Miss. Obviously, his cousin DK Metcalf played at Ole Miss. He was pretty good, I'm told. So I wonder if that's going to be like a kind of a little bit of a chip on his shoulder, kind of an emotional game for him. I have no idea what his relationship was like with Ole Miss growing up, if he wanted to play there, because I know that's how it was with Auburn, where they didn't offer him and he was really salty about it. And Ole Miss, I really just genuinely don't know. I've not spoken to his father about it, but I'd imagine there's a little bit of extra juice here. You're playing the team that your father played at, and there's a tradition of Arkansas defensive backs having massive games against Ole Miss. And, I'm speaking of Hudson Clark, who is stepping up at corner for Arkansas, and he's probably someone we could throw in these challenges. But you mentioned it, Curtis. Jalen Braxton ain't coming back to save you. Hudson Clark is doing all he can to save you, but he's over at corner in the safety, in the secondary, and someone patrolling that back end. It's TJ Metcalf or bust. Jaden Johnson's a pretty good player, but I wouldn't describe him as a playmaker, a guy that's going to go out there and make a bunch of crazy plays and, really swing the game in your favor. TJ Metcalf has a knack for doing that. He's always around the football. He has that knack for doing it. Now, you can only really do that so much as a defensive back. You only get so many opportunities. I'm challenging him one last time. Go ahead and make that big play. I think Arkansas is going to need all of it in a matchup like this. And it would be really cool to see him do it against this particular opponent. I know his family would be buzzing about that. And also, I will just go ahead and just throw out a little mini challenge to the defensive coaching staff at Arkansas. Yeah. Let's see the other Metcalf. Let's see Tevis Metcalf. We've seen a lot of Danico Slaughter, and I like Danico Slaughter. He's actually been better at moments during this season than I thought he could be, because there were times where I was like, this is the worst player on Arkansas. This is Simeon Blair all over again. And he's actually had some moments where he's like, bounce back. He stood in there and fight. He's trying to feed his family. I like Danico Slaughter, but I'm not convinced that Tevis Metcalf can't help Arkansas in the secondary. Because, we heard so much about him in fall camp. We're about at that time of year where it's like he hasn't played in all these games, so it's like you can play him without redshirting him. I wonder if we might be seeing him soon. But TJ Metcalf is who I'm challenging, and I'm gonna go ahead and just get my quick one out before you do your final one. Mm-hmm. I'm challenging linebackers. Were you about to do it?
Nope.
Okay, it's all yours. Curtis, I want to read you some numbers real quick.
Okay.
So Landon Jackson leads Arkansas in pressures on the year and in sacks. He leads Arkansas with 25 total pressures on the year. Nico Davier is 13th, is second with 13 pressures. There's only 4 Razorbacks that have more than 10 pressures. Steven Dix is one of them. He has 11, and Brad Spence is not one of them, but he has 8, which is number 6 on Arkansas's team. So 2 of Arkansas's top 6 pass rushers have been linebackers, which is kind of crazy. And neither of them have been Xavier Story, who's been Arkansas's best linebacker. And I challenged Xavier Story last week. I'm challenging kind of a combo to both of those guys, Dix and Brad Spence, because I said Arkansas is going to need to get pressure on Jackson Dart, and I feel like they've got to do it in unique ways. The numbers would indicate, and it matches what my eyes tell me, that Arkansas's linebackers have been a nice positive factor in the pass rush department, have brought a little bit of an extra punch there from time to time. I think they're going to need some of that. Brad Spence is the one that, I can like remember all of his 8 pressures where I'm like, they were all at big moments. Against UAB, he had that huge sack, which saved Arkansas in that game.
Yeah.
I would love to see a linebacker get back there and really affect this game. Maybe strip sack against Jackson Dart, something like that. I think it's set up in this matchup where Arkansas could be looking at something like that.
Yeah, I like it. I got 2 quick ones. One, just kind of challenging Taylen Green, to your point of what you were saying earlier, but to just kind of have that complete game against a real defense, right?
Yeah.
Like you did it against the JV school in Mississippi. Now do it against the varsity, right? Best of both worlds is what I want to see. And it doesn't have to run wild on them, but be that dual threat guy that we thought you would be. Yeah, of course. Do you like that?
I do like that, yeah.
And then the other one, I'm just challenging Addison Nichols. I think he's got to have his best game yet. A couple reasons. One, he's going to be staring across from Walter Nolan, and that would make me that'd give me the yips. I'll just say that. He's a bad man. He's a game wrecker, a dude who he commands double teams, and he's going to against Arkansas in this game. But it's going to kind of start there with Addison Nichols. Between that and the potential for weather and a slippery ball and everything, the snap's got to get home. Like, we cannot have the deal where, you're just trying to get off the line quick. That way you don't get pancaked by this huge man, and the ball is slippery, and then you're snapping it 12 yards in the backfield, and you have issues there. He needs to be really, really sound for Arkansas. Everything about those snaps, it impacts the timing of the offense. So you got to have that down, and then just got to hold his own there. And he's going to have help, whether it's Kudus or Braun or hell, both of them, to kind of keep this guy in front of you. But don't allow Walter Nolan to be that complete game wrecker that he's capable of being. And he's a little banged up. He left the Oklahoma game in the second half and didn't come back in. But he's listed as probable on that injury report, so I anticipate that he's going to play. But that's a tough assignment. I thought Nichols did a really good job against his former teammates against Tennessee, in terms of, hey, that's a really good defensive line across from you. Can you hold up? And he did. And he's going to have to do that against Ole Miss too. So bold predictions. We got a few of them. I will go first. I have a hard time with these sometimes. But the first one for me, and I think you could probably see a pathway to this being a thing. Believe it or not, I think Arkansas is going to finish this game with more passing yards than Ole Miss, but I think they're going to lose. That's kind of where I'm at. I think they're going to outgain them through the air. I think they're going to lose the game.
I think that is a solid prediction, one that I could see coming true. And if people don't think it's bold enough, I mean, Ole Miss, the number 1 pass offense in the SEC, the number 4 pass offense nationally, and Arkansas fans hate their quarterback. Maybe not as much now, but so you might not think, oh, Arkansas would have more passing yards, but I like that prediction, and I think it's got a very clear path to coming true.
Yeah.
And I also like how you planted the seed that you will not be predicting Arkansas to win the game.
Correct.
Well, Curtis, I'm going to offer a somewhat positive, and when I say somewhat positive, I mean very rose-colored glasses type of prediction.
Okay.
I think that Arkansas, if I were to set the spread on sacks, Curtis, I think if you give Arkansas a sack and a half, they're going to be within that. Like, I don't think that Ole Miss is going to have substantially more sacks than Arkansas. I think Bobby Petrino is going to be, that you mentioned that LSU game where LSU did not allow a sack in that game somehow and 51 dropbacks. Now, I think that took a lot of, they put pressure on Garrett Nussmeier, and he was able to get the ball out in a lot of situations. Taylon's going to have to be super decisive. I don't think Arkansas is going to be able to get out of this game without being sacked a couple times, but I think Arkansas is going to be able to take some stuff from that and find the best way to exploit this Ole Miss defense, getting the ball out quick. I'm sure they'll have some screen games set up. A guy we haven't talked about a lot, Isaiah Satania, I feel like comes to mind when you're just thinking about get the ball out quick, let your playmakers go to work. Isaiah Satania is like what you have in your brain of like the playmaker that you would let go to work. And so I do think, and Taylon is a very athletic quarterback who seems to be getting healthier and healthier as the weeks go on. This has to be his best performance from a decisive decision-making standpoint, but also a don't do anything stupid in the pocket. Don't do that run 9 yards back and circle around thing. I think he's got the tools to actually get the ball, because we've seen him against Tennessee. He did a really good job of this. And even in a little bit of the LSU game, just getting the ball out quickly, just boom, here's my throw, here, I'm going to make it. Here's my throw, boom, I'm going to make it. He's doing a little bit more of that as the weeks go on. I don't think Arkansas is going to get completely suffocated by the pass rush like Oklahoma did. I think Arkansas can hold it to 3 or less sacks. And I think Arkansas is going to get a couple of their own sacks. So I think if it's a weird, bold prediction. I don't know how I'm going to write this out, but I do think that like Arkansas is not going to get killed in the sack department. And I think they're going to be within one of Ole Miss when it comes to total sacks in the game.
Okay, there you go. I have a couple more quick ones. One, I think we are going to have fumbles that cause change of possession a minimum of 4 times in this game. I think the ball is going to be all over the turf. And Arkansas has got fumbleitis anyway. And then I just think about this Ole Miss game and how weird it usually is. I just think the ball is going to be getting kicked all over the place. I really do. And so I think 4 turnovers in this game via the fumble. And then got to do it. I think Christopher Paul gets credit for a turnover, whether it's an interception or he falls on a fumble or he forces one by, popping the ball loose or whatever. I just have this feeling in the pits of my soul, and I love Paul, but I get it. Them transferring to Ole Miss. I just think he's going to make a big play in this game back in Fayetteville that we're going to look back afterwards and be like, damn it.
There's Paul, which, by the way, we love Paul. We really do. And it's happy. And it's, by the way, it's like the number 2 graded linebacker in the country, having a freaking phenomenal year. I would assume is going to be in the mix to get drafted as well. Like, good for him. Like, yeah, seriously good for him. Curtis, when's the last time Arkansas has had a defensive touchdown scored in their game, for or against them? Has it happened this year?
Do they have a pick six?
No, they threw a pick six against Oklahoma State. But I don't know if Arkansas has any their own self.
Yeah, because they turned it over so deep in their own territory, but it wasn't for a touchdown. They did it against A&M. They did it last week with LSU.
They haven't had like defensive touchdowns been happening. Curtis, I am hereby guaranteeing there will be a defensive touchdown scored in this game. And also, I guess I could just throw on the caveat. It's going to have a big impact in the game. Not clarifying who's getting it, not clarifying which team's going to get it. I'm not even going to clarify which turnover it's going to be, but there will be a defensive touchdown scored in this game. Not special teams, defensive touchdown scored in this game. And also my last bold prediction, which is almost, direct, what's the term I'm looking for? The direct, when contradiction. Okay. A little bit. The over under for total points in this game is 55.5, Curtis.
Mm-hmm.
I do not think the over of 45.5 would hit in this game.
Oh, wow.
I think there are going to be 45 or fewer points scored in this game. So that could be 24-21, 24-20. Last year's game, I believe, was 24-17. I think we're looking at a slugfest here, regardless of what the weather does. But I think this is going to be one of those games where it just makes a lot of sense. You think Ole Miss, you think offense, you think Lane Kiffin. Of course, Arkansas's offense has been trending in the right direction here lately. Oh, can they build on it? I think it's just going to be an ugly bunch of punts, some turnovers. Like, I just don't think we're looking at a shootout here. And I think it's going to be an ugly 11 a.m. game that someone wins 24-20.
All right. Well, there you go. Anything else that you want to get off your chest? Anything else you want to say about this football game before we get out of here?
Listen, Hawk fans, I know that you listen to these things and you're like, I really was hoping you guys would pick Arkansas. And, I really just, you guys aren't giving our Hogs credit, blah, blah, blah. Listen, we talked all kinds of shit leading up to that LSU game. We let y'all infiltrate our minds, and we started trying to kind of talk. You can actually see it because I came to Alumni Hall that day, and I was like, guys, I'm not feeling it. I do not feel like Arkansas is going to play well in this game. And I let everyone kind of psych me up, and I wanted to feel fun. I wanted to be in on the action.
Got bullied.
I got away from myself, my true ball knowing tactics, and just kind of caved to the public pressure. And so look, I'm fully capable of doing that again. So if y'all put enough pressure on me, I might cave. But guys, I just don't have a good sense for this game that Arkansas is going to win it. I would love to come here and say that. I just don't really feel that way. I feel like Arkansas has done a good job of overachieving for the most part this year. They're coming off a really nice performance, but it's really hard to ask Arkansas to play well twice in a row. They just really don't do it that much under Sam Pittman. I don't think they're going to do it right here. Now they did have a very good performance going into the bye week against Tennessee. So maybe there's a case to be made there, but it just seems like it would be too convenient for Arkansas to win this game. And therefore I cannot see it happening.
Yeah.
That's all I have to say.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. I don't have a great feeling about this one, but big picture for the rest of the season, I mean, I could see a pathway to multiple wins being left on the
Yeah.
table here, whether they get this one or not. So, still plenty to play for. I don't have any doubt now that my preseason prediction that Arkansas will go 5-7 and miss a bowl will be wrong, and I'm grateful for that. It's like I said at the time.
Yeah.
Hell, I hope they do. I hope they do make it. And it looks like they probably will, and maybe they can play themselves into a pretty good situation where we're not going to Memphis or Birmingham or something in December. So
I'm glad you said that, by the way, because I want to kind of put that caveat on there that like this is a winnable game.
Oh yeah,
I think the Missouri game, very winnable game. The Texas game, probably a little bit less winnable. But even that one, it's like, who the hell knows? I mean,
it feels more so now than it did at the beginning of the year.
It definitely does. Texas looks a lot more human against the SEC than people thought, especially after they played Mississippi State, and that was their only SEC game. I think Arkansas, I think Arkansas is going to be in a lot of these games. It's hard for me to like Sharpie him in as like, all right, yeah, go out on a limb and say, hey, yeah, you're going to beat Ole Miss. Even though they have played well against Ole Miss under Sam Pittman, I think that doesn't affect my mind frame as much as it seems to everyone else. Everyone else is like, well, I mean, 2 years ago when they were in Fayetteville, we whipped them. So, I mean, why wouldn't we whip them again? It's like, well, a completely different team, completely different coaching staff, completely different everything. But other than that, yeah, I hear your point.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for us, folks. We're out of here. Make sure you do all the things that you need to do. Podcasts, go find us, Pot of That Nature, Spotify, Apple, YouTube channel, Inside Arkansas. If you're not subscribed, please do that for us. We'd really appreciate it. Throw us a like. Those always help. We want to expand our reach as far as we can. Hop over to the website, InsideArkansas.com, for all of our written content. And we'll be back after the game. For Andrew Ellis, it's been Curtis Wilkerson with Inside Arkansas on the Pot of That Nature. We will catch you guys on Saturday. Everybody have a good one.